your freedom. I don't want to change your mind. I don't have to.
And as women, we know every issue is a woman's issue. We are concerned about economic issues, health care, early childhood education, young child care about those. We know Hillary has the most comprehensive plan for things that impact our daily lives. But in addition to this, we are living history, and as I travel the state talking to women, that's one of the first things that they talk to me about. Think about that, having that opportunity to be a part of history and elect the first woman president of the United States. Now, as the president mentioned the other day, she's fighting for us. But we can't leave her there alone. We have got to get in the arena with her. So if you haven't been, as the field organizers talk to you, if you haven't been into your local office, please get in there, join the other women. We have Women Wednesdays going on. We're meeting there, we're on the phones. We've got days of action the weekend, and I would really like you to join us to do that. Now, next I have a privilege to, we use this loosely, so my great friend, I am so proud to say that your mayor, Nan Whaley, is my friend. This is a woman that stepped up and broke down barriers in this area. As a woman mayor, she has brought great positive change to your community, and I'm so proud of Nan. We talk about unique issues that Mayor Whaley has brought to this community, breaking barriers, a lot of firsts. I am so proud of all your work.
Thank you, Kathy. We're so glad to have Kathy here in Dayton. You know, she's from north of 70, so you know, when she travels south of 70, we get really excited to see her, and so glad you all gave her a Dayton welcome. Are we ready to get this done this November, you guys? Let me tell you, it is such a great pleasure to be here with you, and I am so honored to get the privilege of welcoming Chelsea Clinton to Dayton today. I always look forward to hearing Chelsea talk about her mom. I know she is very proud of her mom, and it reminds me of the inspiration daughters can have with strong mothers. Some of you today here have met my mom and know that she is one of the reasons why I decided to get involved in politics. My mom was an elected official too. She served as clerk treasurer of the small town in Indiana where I grew up. Later, she ran unsuccessfully statewide as the Democratic nominee for state auditor. I was 14 at the time, and if I'm honest with myself, it is my mom's loss on that election for state auditor that led me to earn my college degree in chemistry rather than in political science. I mean, seriously, who wants to be part of a process that doesn't think your mom is the best? But by her example, my mom instilled in me a passion for public service. She instilled in me a belief that getting women involved in politics is the fastest and surest way to ensure equal rights. That a woman leader is more likely to understand the needs of families and children. And that women leaders are needed to demand that our perspective be heard and our issues addressed. And so, drawing inspiration from my mom's leadership, I tucked away my chemistry degree and I embarked on a career in public service. Now, I have to tell you, this election has been very emotional for my mom. While I was at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia, my mom called or sent me a text every day to tell me how she never thought this day would happen, that she would see a woman nominated for the office of President of the United States. Yeah, I think that's a big deal. My mom can barely talk about Hillary's campaign and what it means to her, without getting emotional. And believe me, we are talking about a woman with nerves of steel. Both of my parents know what is at stake this election. They know that our country has a seriously important choice to make in 54 days. We can choose to fight for the values that make our country and our city stronger, values like diversity, equality, and inclusivity, or we can choose to go to a very dark place that pits American versus American. So I know Chelsea's listening, and I want to tell her, my mom and dad know what is at stake, and they are spending 2 nights a week volunteering on the phones down in Cincinnati to make sure that Chelsea's mother is the next president. My mom and I are supporting Hillary Clinton because she will fight for everyone to get a fair shot at the American dream. My mom and I are supporting Hillary Clinton because she knows that America is stronger when we build bridges and not walls. My mom and I are supporting Hillary Clinton because she is a fighter and she never, ever gives up. And my mom and I are supporting Hillary Clinton because we know that she is the most qualified person to ever run for president. Now, when Hillary was in Cincinnati a few months ago, I got to introduce my mom to her. My mom got to tell Secretary Clinton face to face what her candidacy meant to her personally. Chelsea, your mother was so kind to my parents and told them of how proud they must be of my work as mayor. As my mom and dad were leaving, Hillary stopped them and asked them to come back in the room so the 3 of us could have our picture taken with her because she said, you know, I'm all about mothers and their daughters. There is no doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the daughter of the next President of the United States of America.
Here today, and I want to thank Dr. Johnson and everyone at Sinclair for welcoming me back to Sinclair. I was here 8 years ago, and I'm really grateful to have had the chance to come back, and they gave me another sweatshirt. So, a lot for the sweatshirt, why not? Which certainly will go to good use because I'm constantly cold. I just am so grateful to Kathy and Sarah and Mallory, who are working so hard on behalf of my mom's campaign here in Ohio. And so I just would ask you to give them a big round of applause for their organizers, volunteers, and advocates. I hope this can largely be a conversation this morning, and I look forward to answering whatever questions you might have, or listening to whatever suggestions or advice you might have for my mom's campaign here in the next 54 days. Absurdly proud and grateful to be my mother's daughter. I am unapologetically biased towards her. I make no claim to the contrary, so I just acknowledge that and own that right up front. As now a mom myself, I have 2 little kids, a daughter Charlotte, who's turning 2 later this month, and a son who's not even 3 months old. I hope they're as proud of me someday as I'm proud of my mom. And to me, this election really is about my children and their future. I couldn't agree more strongly with Kathy's sentiment that this is the most important election of my lifetime. And I feel that way in part because it's the first presidential election I'm participating in as a parent. And I didn't know I could care anymore about politics or was running for or holding political office until I became a parent and found that I could. That did surprise me because I grew up spending a lot of time at events like this. I spent a lot of time at organizing events, political rallies. I spent a lot of time volunteering in my dad's campaigns when he was running for governor of Arkansas and re-election. A lot of time stuffing envelopes I know kind of that seems like an alien concept to the people here, much younger than I am, but that used to be a big part of political organizing. And yet this election feels so intensely personal to me because I know whomever we elect as our next president will play a profound role in shaping the country, the world, and really the future that my children and their generation grow up in. So as proud as I am and as grateful as I am that my mom is running, this election is first and foremost about my children. And yet I think even if I weren't a parent, this would probably feel like the most important presidential election of my lifetime because of how much is at stake. The progress that President Obama has made, which I think he gets far too little credit for having made in many years, and the opportunities for progress that his leadership has enabled. So since we're standing or sitting in a community college, I want to talk a little bit about my mom's higher education plans and then open it up to whatever questions you might have. Because I truly think everything is at stake in this election. Whether we're thinking about our economy, healthcare, actually dealing with climate change. My mom's the only person running for president who recognizes that climate change is a real threat, but also a real opportunity. I'm so thrilled to see someone from Moms Demand Action right in the front row wearing the amazing socks with my mom's face on them. I saw them the first time last week. Excuse me, the whole outfit. She wants credit for the whole outfit. It's pretty extraordinary. You'll have to see her later. But truly, and whatever may be in your hearts, on your minds as you're thinking about making sure everyone in Ohio is registered before the registration deadline on October 11th, knows kind of they can vote early starting October 12th, and kind of the last day to vote is indeed election day. But I want to talk before opening it up to your questions about my mom's college compact. And really, I think it's a bit misnamed because it's both about college and graduate school. And I think that's an important distinction to make because for so many people, the limit of what we hope to do doesn't end after we've walked out of Sinclair or Stanford, where I went for our undergraduate degree. So I think it matters that my mom is talking about college affordability. She's really talking about higher education affordability more broadly. And I hope that it'll matter to the people here in the room, to your families, to voters across Ohio, that my mom is the only candidate who actually has a real plan for higher education affordability. So just a few parts of what she means when she talks about her college compact. She believes that anyone should be able to go to Sinclair or any community college tuition free, regardless of family income. And she believes that anyone should be able to go to a public college or university who comes from a family making $125,000 or less. It's about 90% of Ohio families. That would cover about 150,000 students who are currently enrolled in public colleges and universities across the state should be able to go tuition free, and that anyone should be able to graduate from college debt free. Now, she does expect states to be part of the college compact, to stop cutting funding for public community colleges. Because if people are able to go to school tuition free or debt free, but states are disinvesting, that's not a good deal for anyone. So we need states to stop disinvesting, to start reinvesting, and to enable every young person to be able to go to whichever school they think is the right match for them and their ambitions. And for the people who already have student loan debt, which is more than 40 million Americans and hundreds of thousands of people here in Ohio, she thinks that debt should automatically be recalibrated to the lowest interest rate. That's pretty important right now. Interest rates are low. The federal government should not be making a profit off of student loans. And that doesn't really name it. Everyone should be able to pay back their student loans as a percentage of their income. Because people shouldn't have to make professional choices based on whether or not they can service their federal loans. And that's really personal to my mom because my mom paid for law school through student loans. And the only way she was able to go and work for the Children's Defense Fund after she graduated from law school is that Yale, where she went to law school, which held most of her student debt, gave her a grace period and said, as long as you're working in the public interest, you don't have to worry about repaying your student loans. Now, once you get a job where you're actually earning an income, we do expect to be paid back. But when you're working for the Children's Defense Fund, don't worry about your loans. My mom thinks that's also a pretty good model. So for people who are working in the public interest, for people who are starting businesses, who are joining startups, who are contributing to our economic future, there should be grace periods. And for people who are teachers in high-need areas, who are firefighters, who are police officers, that service should count as paying off their student loans. We have to have something that works for our collective future. I think the College Compact really illustrates that when my mom talks about stronger together, it's not just a slogan. So this is just one reason why I'm so absurdly proud of my mom, that she's talking about what's actually at stake in this election, what actually matters for our collective and shared future, and offering real plans to strengthen that shared future. And she's the only person telling you how she's going to pay for what she wants to do. And I think that's an important point too. If someone's thought about how they're going to pay for something, I think they probably have a better chance of being able to get it done. That was just kind of one illustration, and I hope you'll give me the chance to talk about other issues that are important to you and your family. So if you have questions, I hope you'll ask them now. If no one's hands go up, I'll just keep picking issues to talk about. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you for understanding her issues. What she wanted me to ask was, how can I help her? Oh, thank you. I don't think I need this.
Just in case.
Just in case. So my niece would like to understand how Secretary Clinton is going to work for abortion access, Planned Parenthood, and all of those centers that are focused on women's health, so that the war on women can stop. What message can I take back to her?
Thank you for your question. Your question is something I think that is not being paid enough attention to in this election year, partly because this is an area where we've lost ground. So at the end of 2016, if all of the laws that are expected to pass this year in various state legislatures, in addition to those that have already passed, more than 50% of American women will have fewer health care choices than we had in 2008. And that's partly because of the restrictions that have been placed on Planned Parenthood across the country. And what I think a lot of people don't know is that Planned Parenthood is the provider of health care to so many low-income women across our country. Full stop. Reproductive health care services, yes. Health care services more broadly, even more so. And so I would hope that if you care about women's issues, this is something you're paying attention to. I also hope if you care about economic justice and social justice, this is also something that you're paying attention to. Because women who are immigrants to our country, and so I'm thrilled and grateful that your niece is asking this question of me, but I hope also is talking about this to her friends. So a few things. One, we have to continue to encourage states that have not expanded Medicaid to do so under the Affordable Care Act. And states continue to not expand Medicaid. Look for ways to partner with cities who want to expand Medicaid on their own. So currently Houston is applying to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services under HHS for a waiver to be able to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act in Houston. There are models for that already around the country. I live in New York City. New York City actually has our own Medicaid system. So we already have precedent, we know this can work, and this goes directly to your question to ensure that women are able to access whatever health care we need, because under the Affordable Care Act, for the first time, insurance companies as well as Medicaid cannot deny women access to reproductive health care services. So expanding Medicaid is a huge part of answering this question. And also defending federally qualified health centers and ensuring they're fully funded, particularly on reproductive health care services. And that's important too, because another way that kind of we've lost ground is in some areas, federally qualified health centers have stopped investing. So when kind of nurses or doctors who work in these areas leave, replacements are not being hired. So there's lots of things that might seem small in both the insurance question as well as the healthcare provision question, but they're not small. They're deeply, profoundly meaningful to ensure that we are actually guaranteeing a woman's right to choose, and even more so ensuring that each of us are agents of our own health. My mom is proud to be endorsed by Planned Parenthood. She fought against restrictions on a woman's right to choose. As a senator, she fought to defend women's health and agency around the world as our Secretary of State. She thinks this is kind of hugely important work to continue to do, hopefully, in the White House. So thank you for your question. She worked on three things predominantly. The first was to help build the case for why every child in our country deserves the right to free public education, regardless of disability status. And the United States became one of the first countries in the world to pass legislation to that end. That being said, we still have a lot of work to do to ensure that schools and teachers, social workers, school nurses, kind of everyone in the ecosystem around children are trained, supported, such that all our special needs children are given every possible advantage. We have more work to do. I'm proud that my mom was part of at least ensuring that we were first committed to that work as a country back in the 1970s. She also worked in South Carolina to help get largely young African-American men who were trapped in the adult prison system into the juvenile system, so that one, they were safer. Two, they weren't then just immediately graduated. I think one of the worst possible uses of graduated ever into the adult prison system, so they had a chance to get out when they turned 18. And also so that they could access their constitutional right to an education, which they were unconstitutionally being denied when they were in the adult prison system. And she worked in Alabama to expose the so-called segregation academies, which were actually segregation academies, reappropriating public funds to perpetuate all white schools 20 years after Brown v. Board of Education. So my mom did all that before I was born. So thank you for giving me the chance to talk about that.
Every day.
Well, I'm gonna keep talking about the things I'm asked about, and I'll try, even when I'm not asked about it, to work that in. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your passion and support of my mom. I hope that the media does cover you being here. I can talk to them and about why you're so clearly behind your campaign. So thank you. Someone else want to give up similarly passionate?
I'm a very passionate fan this week, and I love how you say Hillary has had plans since the beginning of time. And I'd like to hear more about her thoughts on child care, especially because we're advocating for the preschool promise.
Great, thank you for talking about child care. Mr. Trump did talk about maternity leave this week, and his maternity leave plan would provide 6 weeks of coverage just for new moms, and any compensation would come from unemployment insurance. And so in some states that would be just a couple $100s per week. It's very different from my mom's plan, which would be 12 weeks for a new mother or new father. Would cover those of us who have children, I had my children by C-section, those of us who have children by adoption or by fostering. So it has a much more inclusive definition of parenting. and it doesn't raid unemployment insurance. It guarantees at least 2/3 of your salary over those 12 weeks. And it isn't only about becoming a parent, it's family medical leave broadly. So for those of us that have to take care of sick grandparents or siblings or have other kind of familial demands on our heart, and that means demands on our time to support each of us to make the right choices for ourselves. So I do think that's a pretty big distinction and a pretty big reveal of a different understanding of what and who parents are in the 21st century and what our families look like in the 21st century. And investing in those early months are so important. Investing in those early years are so important too. And so what my mom also believes is hugely critical is ensuring that no family, whether a single mother, a mom and a dad, 2 women, 2 men, some other composition, ever has to pay more than 10% of their family income in childcare costs. And the tax code and tax credits to ensure that's the case. And we need universal pre-kindergarten. She fought for universal pre-kindergarten when she was a senator. One of the fights that she didn't win, but she fought for it. And although she didn't win that fight, she did win the fight to double federal funding for early Head Start programs and early Head Start parent support programs when she was a senator. So this is an area where the federal government can and must really partner with states and cities to ensure that every parent, every family, kind of whatever we look like, whoever we are, can make what we think are the right choices, particularly for our youngest members. So thank you for raising this. I think this is a classic example of something that Kathy talked about, although this is often framed as a women's issue. It's really a family issue, an economic issue, and I would argue a moral issue for all of us. So thank you.
Increased our knowledge and increased our ability for all these guys to go out and get jobs, support their families, and we had a great flourishing of our economy. I think the idea of education now, college, having less cost or no cost should be actually merchandised in the same way. That this helps our group together. We're stronger when everybody is educated, and that is
Thank you. I support her in the Senate of the second GI Bill after September 11th, and very much believes that yes, we are all stronger together. And again, that's not a slogan. And I've certainly heard her make those connections, and so I hope that's something that you'll hear her do broadly as well, and I'll start trying to do that similarly. So thank you for the feedback.
This were not well accepted by maybe some conservative kids or the Republican groups, and I'm just wondering how you've lived your whole life with maybe anti-Bill and anti-Hillary rhetoric. How do you combat that when someone says, "Oh, you're supporting a liar," or "You're supporting this or that"? How do you say, "Well, no, I'm not. I'm supporting Hillary Clinton"?
From 1986. Sorry, you went to Xavier. Your name's not Xavier. What's your name? Trey. You didn't tell me your name, though, I don't think, which is why I called you Xavier. I apologize. So Trey, Xavier. So some of my earliest memories are from 1986. My dad was running for re-election as governor of Arkansas, and he was running against a man named Frank White, who literally represented the worst of Arkansas's past. He had been governor of Arkansas before. He was an active segregationist. He did not believe in Brown v. Board of Education. He was an active misogynist. And although he was running against my dad, he spent a lot of the campaign attacking my mom. And he spent a lot of the campaign attacking my mom for, this is true, although you're all going to be like, what? For being in the pocket of the special interest of the poor. Because she was chair of the Legal Services Corporation at the time of America, so she was overseeing legal aid throughout the country. But his favorite attacks were that she must be a terrible mother. So she must be a terrible mother because she must be really neglecting poor Chelsea, because we see her kind of in court, arguing for other people's kids and other people's families. And at the time, she also was leading the effort to reform our public school system in Arkansas. So there she is talking about like other people's kids and other people's family. Leaving aside that by 1986, I actually was in the Arkansas public school system, so she was actively working for my education too. And thankfully, even at 6, I knew that was crazy because I saw my mom all the time. Like, I never felt like she had to trade off quality or quantity of time. I was really proud of her legal aid work. It's what we talked about around the breakfast table or the dinner table. I knew that if on the rare occasion she did kind of miss a school drop-off or a family dinner, it was only because she was working for other people's kids, for other people's families, and I knew that was really then for my future too. I don't think I could have articulated that so crisply at 6, but I emotionally understood that, which is what was really important. And I did, again, know that it was crazy that Frank White was saying these things about my mom as a mom because I'm an only child. And I knew I didn't have an older brother named Frank White. And I knew that I got to be the alpha and the omega when my mom was a mom. And so I share that story now because there can be cognitive dissonance. When the man asked the earlier question about kind of why wasn't I talking about kind of everything that my mom had already done before I was born, which is a public service record I would be hugely proud of if she hadn't then done everything in the 36 years since I was born. And kind of that's not well known or discussed. I think that it's partly answered by the fact that what was happening in 1986 and what was getting a lot of coverage back in Arkansas in 1986 is not dissimilar from what's happening today. So thank you for having those conversations, and feel okay if you also have those moments of like, well, that's not remotely connected to reality. And let me tell you why I understand that. So thank you, Trey and Xavier. Other questions? Yes, over here. Yes, ma'am.
Many Americans are hardworking and they're willing to work full-time or as many hours as their employer will give them, but they still aren't able to make a living wage. What is some of the things about that?
So thank you for your question. $7 in a quarter. In many states, it's not much higher than that. And that we need to guarantee equal pay for equal work. That's not only important for women, it's also directly relevant to the earlier question that was asked around Americans with disabilities. It is still legal in our country to pay Americans with disabilities less than 1/3 of the federal minimum wage. And most of y'all didn't even know that. Right? And this to me is a moral outrage in our country that in 2016 we still have legalized wage discrimination. So it matters to me that when my mom talks about raising the minimum wage, she is also talking about finally guaranteeing equal pay for equal work, yes, for women, but for all Americans, because for the tens of millions of Americans with mental and physical disabilities, they have to be part of equal pay for equal work's promise as well. So we have to, again, invest in raising the federal minimum wage, finally get to equal pay for equal work, and also create more well-paying jobs in our economy. I mean, I think this is another kind of big difference between my mom and Mr. Trump. If you kind of look at what John McCain's senior economic advisor said, not exactly someone you would expect would maybe be a friend of my mom's campaign. He said that if Donald Trump enacted all of the things he's promised on the economy, he would destroy 3 million jobs in our country, including more than 100,000 right here in Ohio. And if my mom were elected, she would create 10 million jobs in our country, including hundreds of thousands of here in Ohio. I think that's a pretty big difference. Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there any chance you'll follow in your mother?
Thank you. Kind of back back to my reminiscing about spending a lot of time at events like this. One of my earliest memories is waving an American flag. I think I was in Magnolia, Arkansas, when my dad was running for governor in 1984, and a woman came up to me and said, do you think you'll ever run for governor of Arkansas? I think it's actually pretty cool that she asked a little girl that in 1984. We didn't quite have kind of my mother as our role model. And I think I said something like, ma'am, I'm 3 or 4. But I share that because people have been asking me this question my whole life. And right now, I am really grateful that I live in a city, in a state, in a country where all the people that I can vote directly for, I strongly support. I'm an awesome city councilwoman in New York City. I strongly support my public advocate in New York City, Tish James. She's one of my kind of real heroes. I support my mayor, my congresswoman, my senators, my president. I'm clearly a huge supporter of my mom's. And so I share that because I think to run for public office, you have to think you can do a better job than whomever is there, and you have to think you have the right skills to address the challenges that you see or to seize the opportunities that you're identifying. And right now, I don't even ask those questions of myself because I'm just really lucky to be such a strong supporter on behalf of my family for the people who represent me. But if that were to change, I'd have to then ask and answer that question. And I hope that everyone in this room is thinking about that. I hope that that question is being asked to young people like Trey, Xavier, clearly already recognize that running for office is important. Kind of, will he ever think about running for office? Because I think I'm really lucky to have been asked that question, and then to also be blessed with the high expectations that are behind that question. Because we should be asking and giving the gift of high expectations and support to all of our young people and all of our kids across Ohio and across our country. So thank you for your question. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to everyone here at Sinclair. Thank you to everyone in my house with me. And thank you to Madam Mayor. We're going to get this done, right? We're working every day. We're working hard. I will be the cyber president, and everybody here will be working every day for the next 54 days to elect Hillary Clinton president, right?
I don't want to steal your freedom. I don't want to change your mind. I don't have to make you love me. I just want to take